and we might take it sometimes later if we're able to sort out the technical issues. Please allow me to state some housekeeping. The event is being recorded and will be available in our YouTube channel, Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce, in bracket Nbcc. To comment and have discussion during this event, please use the chat icon. Questions should be submitted using this chat icon, and this question will be answered during the question and answer session. If the volume is too low at anybody's end, please check your system volume in the first instance. As at this point, let me invite the President and Chairman of Council, Mrs. Bisi Adeyemi, to give a welcome address. Please join me in welcoming Madam President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shibayo, and good morning, everyone. Members of the Nbcc Council, ESCO members here present, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. I'm indeed pleased to welcome you to the Nbcc Energy Town Hall event themed Dealing with Energy Affordability and Availability. Let me quickly introduce the Nbcc to those of you in the audience who are not familiar with us, although I'm sure you are in the minority. The Nbcc was established in 1977 to promote trade and investment between Nigeria and Britain. The Chamber is currently has over 400 members from diverse sectors of the economy. We are an international affiliate of the British Chamber of Commerce, which gives us access to over 53 chambers of commerce across the United Kingdom and 71 other international affiliates around the world. Now to the topic of today. Energy is fundamental to economic growth and industrial advancement. Accordingly, access to energy and its availability are critical to the attainment of economic prosperity. It is expected that the focus of energy policies will be towards achieving energy security, protecting the environment, and ensuring affordability. Undoubtedly, national prosperity and the ability of all sectors to contribute to prosperity is tied to the effective management of the energy sector. Unfortunately, it will appear that as a nation, we have not sufficiently unlocked the potential of the sector to galvanize national prosperity. Our expectation at today's webinar is that our speakers will provide some useful insights into the challenges of energy affordability and availability. Permit me to welcome our speakers, Mr. Mahmoud Sokro, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Ash Group Energy Limited, Mr. Olusegun Ogunwumi, who is the Managing Director of Gasco Marine. Our moderator for today's event will be Ms. Olufunto Anam, Business Value and Regulation Commercial Manager at Shell Petroleum Development Company, Nigeria Limited. We're indeed indebted to us today, GMT Energy Resources, for their generosity, and I must commend the Energy Group for hosting this event and thank them for their fortitude in planning and actualizing this event. So, ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to enjoy this session and, like me, anticipate that answers will be provided to some of these questions. Thank you very much, and back to you, our moderator.
Thank you, Madam President. Before the moderator comes up, let me quickly introduce our moderator. Within the Energy Group, after a long search, we were able to find Madam Funto, as I call her. Olufunto Anam started her career as a geosciences stroke explorationist. She started in Texaco in 1990, and she was there for 10 years. She continued as a geologist for another 2 years in Chevron, as in Shell. So indeed, if you are looking for an explorationist that has all that the big multinational do, don't look too far. So after the stint in exploration, she developed interest in commercial side of the business. And what did she do? She went to acquire an MBA at Edinburgh Business School and made a career change to become an oil and gas commercial professional since 2007. 2007 is also quite some time now. Within that period, she has developed expertise in a broad area of commercial agreements including production sharing contract, joint operating agreement, unitization, crude handling, and gas sales agreement. She has worked for Shell within and outside Nigeria in various technical and commercial capacities, including commercial and NOV ventures manager in SPDC. That role also includes a C-level type experience because as part of that role, she was the shareholder representative for Shell in the unitized venture of ENI and Nbcc via MPDC. As part of commercial, she was also commercial manager in NAM, Netherlands, covering Netherlands and Germany for a period of time before she eventually returned to Nigeria. She's currently the business value and regulation manager, leading the implementation of PIA for share companies in Nigeria. Her training and experience give her a rounded view of the Nigerian energy industry in which she has invested 30 plus years. By my count, it was actually 37 to 38 years. But she has passion and she has capacity. She likes the viable energy industry. That's her prime interest. She's married with 2 children. In her free time, she loves to write inspirational stories and do the dance steps and hang out with trustees, Lagbaja, for those that are familiar with that domain. So help me to welcome our moderator today. But before she take off the banner, let me quickly say a few words about our sponsors and invite them to reach before she then proceed with the rest of the program. Just as Madam President mentioned, our sponsors today is GMT Energy Resources Limited. And we are going to be getting a speech that will be made by the Chairman and Chief Executive of GMT Energy Resources Limited, Dr. Shende Oladapo Fadeni. Dr. Fadeni is an astute businessman with experience spanning close to 3 decades, with interest in strategic sectors of the economy, which include oil and gas, real estate, hospitality, maritime, and managing director of GMT Energy Resources, which is a private indigenous multi-billion naira company incorporated in Nigeria. If I remember, in 2007, with an overriding national and global interest. The company has grown from strength to strength. They now have offices locally and also globally. Mr. Fadeni also shares the board of National Aviation Handling Company Limited, in addition to several other board membership. He has education from University of Lagos, but he has also been trained in Harvard, having attended the Owners President Management Program not too long ago. He is known for his incredible skill in perceiving business needs and creating solutions to meet those needs. In addition, network of high-value contacts locally and internationally. Without mincing words, Dr. Sende is an inclusive leader, inclusive in all respect. He's God-fearing, loving, and caring family man with strong commitment and devotion to philanthropic activities, part of which is the sponsorship of the event we are having today. Expectedly, he has received several awards from professional business and addition of his contribution to nation building. Help me to welcome Dr. Sage.
You have to disable disable me so that I can exactly start my video. Thank you.
Right. You have the
and the chairman of Chamber of Commerce and Industry, council member present, ladies and gentlemen. GMT is happy to be the sponsor of the Maiden Energy Committee Town Hall event, but so because of the topic in discussion. GMT Energy Resources Limited is a fully integrated offshore engineering, procurement, and installation company with offices overseas. We started in 2007 in Nigeria and very quickly create a niche for ourselves by delivering comprehensive and connected subsea engineering services, relying on the deep technical expertise of our people, technology capability, while working on world-class assets in the offshore sector. From 2019, we have expanded internally and still making progress. For more about us, I encourage you to visit our website sources. Energy availability and affordability are very relevant issues today and most appropriate for discussion. Why availability supply? Affordability, average consumers' income. In Nigeria, supply has been impacted by a combination of lower oil and transmission and distribution issues. Also, foreign currency exchange issues, as upstream sector is dollar dominated and we are still much import dependent. And availability, we have seen the rising energy prices in Nigerian motor spirit, PBS, aka petrol, that is subsidized following from global events. Russia's forex adequacy and exchange rates levels. In Petroleum Industry Act that was enacted recently, subsidy was legislated to be removed, and we have read that it will be implemented by the incoming government. Combined availability and availability of energy issues is ultimately about the ordinary people. So it is generally accepted business practice to cover costs. To so increase costs from rising energy prices will be transferred to consumers who are themselves direct consumers of energy in their respective homes. A good example is the aviation sector, where I also operate. Increase in cost of aviation fuel has led to increase in costs by airlines and ensure their own survival. At GMT Energy Resources, we will continue to deliver excellent services of all our stakeholders, particularly the ordinary people of the world. Thank you for the opportunity you've given me. You can see that I'm ready. It's what I'm sure when we have more opportunity, we'll be able to expand on what I've said. And not only that, our websites can also put more to what I've seen. I wish you a good deliberation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sende Oladapo. So at this point, I will then hand over back to our moderator, Madam Funto, to then introduce the speakers and take us. Madam Funto, over to you.
Thank you very much, Taj. And good morning to everyone. I'm able to undo my video at this point. So if you could enable me to do that. Okay. All right. So good morning, everyone. And welcome to this very important discussion that has been set up for us to discuss something, and everyone on the call should be able to relate to. Our topic for today is dealing with energy availability and affordability. And I really like the way, those two have been set separately, because it does hit us in both aspects. I'm really looking forward to the discussion, and also for some housekeeping, just to let you know that you can ask in the Q&A section, you can change there. Our speakers are going to speak 20 minutes each. Both have experience, a broad range of experience in the industry, all the way to the downstream. So you'll expect to see and cover of the subject matter. we will take at the end of, if you have issues with your audio, please check it at first instance your own systems, and then you can ping the facilitator should be able to help if that is the audio issue. So let's get right into it. First, I would like to introduce Mahmoud Tukur. Mr. Mahmoud is over 28 years of experience in the energy, maritime, technology sectors. So when we talk about being well-rounded, there you go. Prior to founding the Ashgrove Group of companies, Mahmoud served as the MD CEO of Eterna, and indeed, which some of us may have patronized at some point in time. And it's also listed in the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Having initially served as a non-executive director for about 6 years, he was appointed the CEO at the age of 37, making him the youngest CEO of a publicly listed company at the time. He served as the MD CEO of that Limited, a foremost indigenous maritime services company. He joined honors graduate of accounting and management of business school of the University of Wales College, Cardiff, a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Shipping in Nigeria, and a recipient of a national honor, Officer of the Order of the Mono, OOM, of the Republic of Togo. Mr. Mahmoud Tukur is fluent in 4 languages, including French, and he enjoys mentoring young professionals. He is married to Aisha Umi Tukur, a social entrepreneur, and they are blessed with 3 lovely children. So it's quite a CV right there. And we are looking forward to hearing from your vast experience. Mr. Tukur, I will now hand over to you for your speech. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Just a moment. I'm trying to get the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you see my presentation?
Not yet. Okay.
Okay.
It's coming through, yes. It's on.
So thank you very much. Good morning, Madam President. Good morning, Madam Moderator, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mahmoud Tukur. Thank you for inviting me to speak today. I will go as fast as I can in a very limited time. I will talk about energy affordability in Nigeria. I would like to start with a small quote. Energy is the golden thread that connects economic growth, social equity, and environmental sustainability. And I got this from a quote by Ban Ki-moon, which I think is very apt, considering where we are globally. The oil industry at a glance, just a very quick view, not to bore you with too many statistics, As you know, we're producing 1.4, 1.3, 1.4 million barrels a day of oil, which is way below our OPEC quota. We do have reserves, about 40 billion and about 206 TCF of gas. We're supposedly consuming somewhere around 67 million liters a day of PMS, which will be the main topic of today. But I think the statistics to the right really speak to the problem. The oil industry generates 88% of the government's foreign exchange earnings, yet it only contributes 6.3% to our GDP. So that tells you that the local value add is very minimal, and there probably we begin to see the problem of where supplier products are not actually available locally to the consumer. I want to take the presentation from a supply perspective, first of all, and just show you this slide, which talks to how is PMS actually supplied in Nigeria. And you'll be surprised that we as consumers will sit in the comfort of our homes, or we'll go to petrol stations and we expect to be served. But there's a back end of a whole logistics supply infrastructure that is challenging, or that is challenged and is causing problems in terms of delivery of petroleum products to the consumer. So actually today, because the majority of pipelines, about 5,000 kilometers, are not working, and despite the fact that the government has spent over 600 billion in reconstructing 27 roads nationwide, we still have a challenge in actually delivering fuel to our customers. So, and there are about 6,500 trucks that are used by the majors and Nbcc alike to actually truck fuel on a daily basis from one depot or one port to filling stations. About 10% is done by pipeline, another 10% by barges. So the majority of delivery of petroleum products is actually by road rather than by the pipe. You see a pipeline network here on paper, but actually all of it is disused. So we have a major supply problem because of a distribution problem because of the fact that these pipelines are not working. If we now go to the source of supply, theoretically, Nigeria has nameplate capacity of 475,000 barrels a day of refining capacity. So that is 150,000 barrels in Port Harcourt Old Refinery, 150,000 barrels Port Harcourt New Refinery, about 125,000 barrels Warri Refinery, and Kaduna is about 110,000. All these refineries have not worked for the last, I don't know how many years. After years, you can probably count the number of days or months or weeks that these refineries have worked. The government has contracted a lot of international companies recently, Daewoo to fix the Port Harcourt, Technimont to fix Port Harcourt Refinery, Daewoo to fix both Warri and Kaduna refineries. So spent hoping to rehabilitate these old refineries and actually then make products available locally. In the meantime, everything is imported. So we talk about the availability, despite the fact that these massive investments in refineries, everything has to be imported, and therein lies the problem. And the consumption in Nigeria, or the demand in Nigeria, has continued to grow. So as at December, we're talking about 68 million liters a day of PMS. As at today, statistics are showing greater than 80 million liters. So despite the massive growth in demand, and I use the word loosely, demand for petroleum products in the country, there's actually no clear data of how much petroleum products is consumed in the country. So I make a distinction between demand and consumption. So we are loading out about 80 million liters. How much of it is consumed in the country, nobody knows. And Nigeria has imported, is the 18th largest importer of refined petroleum products. We've imported over $11 billion worth of petroleum products. So it's a massive drain on our economy. What does the future hold? We're hoping, based on projections, based on refinery projects that are coming up, that the refining capacity will increase from the nameplate 475,000 barrels a day to over 1.7 million liters a day of petroleum products. Chief amongst which is the Dangote refinery, which is meant to bring on about 650,000 barrels a day of refining capacity, the Boa refinery, Petrolex, China Chengjam, Walter Smith. There are so many other smaller modular refineries, Dupont, Atlantic, International, etc. NMPC is taking a proactive role. I think by the law now, the government's policy mandates NMPC taking at least a 10% or 20% stake in refineries that exceed over 50,000 barrels a day. And we've seen a stake in the NCDMB, the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board, is also supporting domestic refining capacity by investing in projects, a lot of several modular refineries already. So the implication of this going forward is that, of course, the growth in domestic refining capacity will greatly improve availability of supply locally and eliminate the importation of petroleum products and eventually lead to exportation of petroleum products. In terms of pricing, as you can see, in the last 1 year, the MPR has increased from 11.5 to 18%. So certainly these are going to have negative implications on the cost of capital in the economy and the energy space. It's going to cost more to borrow money, and therefore that's going to translate into the final cost of products to the consumer. If we look at our inflation has gone up again, 14.5% to over 22%. Exchange rate officially has devalued from 353 naira to the dollar to 460 naira to the dollar. All of these have an impact on the cost of petroleum products. Globally, or generally in Nigeria, the low purchasing power of the average Nigerian is very high. Statistics say 133 million are reported to be in some sort of multi-dimensional poverty. There are significant FX shortages, so therefore the parallel market is more 740. The real price at which you can buy FX is 740 naira to the dollar, as opposed to the official exchange rate of 460. All crude oil and derivative products are all priced in USD and then translated into naira at whatever exchange rate you use to buy the dollar. So ultimately, this is going to have a major impact on the affordability of refined petroleum products to the end customer, to the consumer. Just a very quick glance at what's happened to prices. You've seen from October to March here, prices have gone from 195 naira per litre for PMS to 264. AGO has remained between 800 and 840 naira. LPG price has gone up a little bit. HHK is obviously in reduced consumption now because of LPG take, but bottom line is that prices have gone up by 35% in the last 6 months. The government is spending over 500 billion a month on subsidy payments, and costs and prices continue to increase on a daily basis. And therefore, this is going to plague the affordability if not addressed. What are the challenges? The inability of marketers to import petrol since 2017 due to the unavailability of FX, making NMPC the sole importer of PMS under the subsidy regime. There are soaring costs, charging rates have gone through the roof, FX has devalued, so therefore all of this leads to a high ex-depot landing price above recommended retail price. So it's even difficult to find petrol because you cannot sell at a regulated price when your landed cost is significantly higher than that. As I mentioned earlier, we're moving products using trucks, and therefore the high cost of diesel, the high cost of maintenance of trucks, the high cost of spare parts and all of these things having an impact on the overall cost of freight. So therefore, freight rates have also gone up, leading to an increase in the overall cost of freight, and therefore total cost of consumer. The pipeline network of PMS is completely down. Logistically speaking, even though Lagos has a draft that can accommodate a certain type of vessel, majority of shipments have to go through some sort of lightering operation before they can actually discharge. That's even in Lagos. When we talk about the likes of Warri and Calabar Port, where the drafts are significantly lower, you can only take vessels of about 5 to 7 or 10,000 metric tons. So therefore, this leads to multiple lightering operations and therefore additional costs additional cost of operations, making the product more expensive. Again, I use the term loosely. There are internal and cross-border diversions. So internal diversions, sometimes products that are meant to be delivered in Lagos are diverted to somewhere in the north because the margins are higher. Products that are meant to be consumed within Nigeria, we believe there's no facts, there's no data, or there's no evidence, but there seems to be a lot of movement to suggest that there's some cross-border diversion of products. So therefore, the volume being consumed within Nigeria is not necessarily true or accurate. They like to talk about fuel subsidy. So holistically, what is subsidy? Subsidy is often justified as an item of common good. It's not entirely a bad concept. Usually government starts subsidies in one form or the other in an area in the form of tax breaks or grants, and some sort of economic support to help jumpstart or capitalize a sector, especially at the infant stage. Now, we can't say that the oil industry in Nigeria is at its infancy. As the sector evolves, subsidy is usually removed to allow the sector become competitive and to give room for cost-reflective and market-driven pricing, therefore attracting investments and engender long-term growth. That's how subsidy is meant to work in theory. Now, the practice of subsidy in Nigeria is that, funny enough, I think I have a direct link to subsidies. I was born in 1973, 50 years ago, and that's when we started talking about subsidy. Back in the day, we were buying fuel in kobos per liter. The government of late Ernest Shonekan, the interim national government, increased it to 5 naira per liter in 1993, which at that time represented a 600% increase. So over the years, subsequent governments have continued to increase the price of PMS without ever fully deregulating the market. And if I speak specifically about the last 8 years, this incumbent occasions landed PMS lower than the regulated market price. However, the government missed the opportunity to fully deregulate the market, and this has had serious consequences, and which is I'm going to show in the next slide. So this is our drain. Funding the cost of subsidy. It was meant to end by June 2023. We're hearing mixed messages. We don't know what the next administration is going to do. But let's look at the problem. In 2020, we spent about 107 billion on subsidy, increased to 1.4 trillion in 2021. By mid-year 2023, we've already spent over almost 4 trillion naira. And the projection for full year 2023 is about 6.7 or 7 trillion naira. That's an average of 560 billion naira. These numbers are staggering. Subsidy has increased by 371% in the matter of a couple of years. And if you look to the slide to the right, we're selling fuel officially at 185 naira per liter. And look across, Chad is 333, Niger 365, Benin Republic 381, Togo 441, Ghana 493. Clearly, there's an arbitrage. There's a delta between the fixed price in Nigeria and prices across the border. This certainly there's a very strong incentive to smuggle petroleum products. So what's the impact of all of this on Nigeria? We have major revenue leakages. So the government is going to spend 6 trillion naira to subsidize PMS. Nigeria is an oil-producing country, and instead of benefiting from the high price of crude oil sales, we're effectively throwing away the entire value in PMS subsidies payments. I'm sure we've all recently seen that Aramco has now become the second largest business in the world. So what direction for NBCC? And why is that? Aramco's fortunes have been buoyed by global oil prices and global gas prices, but we have not seen us. In Nigeria, our economy has contracted. We have suffered despite everybody else benefiting from being an oil-producing nation. Conflicting consumption figures. It's actually difficult to determine the exact volume of PMS being consumed in Nigeria, which is anywhere between 70 and 90 million liters a day, based on truck load-out figures. Some people will tell you the consumption ought not to be more than between 30 and 45 million liters a day. So, and a number of government agencies have gone on record to say they actually don't have a clue. This is worrying. In the age of technology, in the age of security, we actually don't know what we're consuming on a daily basis. And which begs the question, who exactly are we subsidizing? Is it the rich with their large fleet of petrol guzzling cars and escorts, etc.? If the subsidy is meant to help the poor man, then the question is it really working? To summarize on subsidy, in my opinion, there are no silver bullets. Fuel availability, scarcity, as the case may be, is both a function of supply and distribution. The product may be available, but bad roads, lack of functional pipelines may hinder distribution. In my opinion, deregulation will ensure that the market is purely driven by the forces of demand and supply, with little or no government interference. There will be no cost to barrier. There will be no barrier to cost recovery, and therefore players will be encouraged to make an investment and can charge market-driven prices. I'm an advocate for sequential and gradual approach to increasing the price of PMS. I think full deregulation overnight today, given our security challenges, given our economic realities, given the underlying political tensions, may be difficult for the next administration, but also maintaining this folly of 185 naira per litre, I think also is not sustainable. So we should set a path, a plan towards how do we systematically increase the price of PMS, and how do we then also invest in sectors providing, for the less privileged, maybe fuel vouchers. We've seen electric vehicles coming up. There are many palliative initiatives that we can take on board to cushion the effect, but ultimately there will be a short-term shock. But that's what's needed. That's the only thing that can actually save our economic woes at the moment. In terms of the PIA was meant to come and save us. We thank God that the PIA finally has been passed. So at least the PIA has birthed a regulator. We now have a regulator, the NMDPRA, which is focused on the midstream and downstream sectors. Hitherto, we had the downstream department of the Department of Petroleum Resources. Of course, upstream dwarfed all DPR activities. So having NMDPRA focus on the midstream and downstream sector is a welcome development. We're going to have a lot of transparency, very focused regulation, a more responsible regulator, a focus on the midstream aspects in terms of gas, the gas investment fund to develop infrastructure. So the PIA should lead to major focus and retransformation of the mid and downstream sectors, which will then help also not only the supply availability of products locally, but at the same time make the market more competitive and hopefully then deliver lower prices to the consumers. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Mahmoud. That was really insightful. We've heard about the opportunities around more domestic refineries, that potentially could enhance the availability side. But then we've also heard of the downside of the arbitrage at the borders. We have quite, few neighboring countries that provide an opportunity, for arbitrage. So quite, the balanced view there that you've provided. Thank you for that talk. What we'll do is we will take all the questions towards the end so that we can also give Mr. Segun Ogunwumi an opportunity to share with us from the gas perspective. So Segun, I'll be calling on you now, just after introducing you. So Segun Ogunwumi is the Managing Director of the Gasco Maritime Limited. He has over 39 years in upstream and downstream and gas industry experience. 23 of those years he spent in Shell, Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria, including 4 years in cross-posting in the Netherlands. Between 1985 and 2006, Segun was, sorry, I lost that. Okay, between 1985 and 2006, Segun led various geophysical, economics, planning, and portfolio management teams in Shell Nigeria and in the Netherlands. In 2006, seconded to DPR, who was the regulator before the PIA. He was seconded from Shell, and he spent 2 years in that capacity before stepping out and taking his adventures, into the into Sahara Energy Field Limited in 2008. He was appointed MD of Asharami Energy Limited, a subsidiary of Sahara E&P, in 2015, a position that he held up to January 2016, and then Segun joined Gasco Marine Nigeria Limited as by the end of 2016 as the Deputy Managing Director and Director for Gas Solutions, tasked with building a portfolio of CNG, LPG, and LNG solutions for local industry. Segun has a BSc in Applied Geophysics from the University of Ife, that's OAU now, and has attended several professional and safety courses during his career in Shell. He is married with children, and he is a member of the NAPE, that's Nigerian Association of Petroleum Explorationists, and the NMGS, which is the Nigerian Mining and Geosciences Society. So Segun is going to be speaking with us on the gas aspect. Energy comprises of both, the liquid petroleum products and the gas to energy. So Segun, please take it away.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you for the opportunity to present my thoughts on the gas industry in Nigeria and the energy situation in globally and in Nigeria as well. I'm trying to fix my screen. I hope you can see it.
Not yet. All right, coming up.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Please put it on slideshow as well.
Yes.
Great, perfect.
So I will spend the next few minutes talking about the energy availability and affordability in the country. We'll show that Nigeria is blessed with abundant resources, and we should have energy readily available, but we'll see whether that indeed is the case or not. I will show what the impact of energy costs on the average Nigerian and what the challenges are and what we need to do to overcome those challenges. Let me give a brief background on the resources that we have in this country. I'm going to focus on the gas resources. We know that Nigeria has about 37 billion of oil reserves, and we are told by the new regulator, the upstream regulator, that as at the end of last year, we have about 208 trillion cubic feet of gas reserves. Now, when you look at the current production, we currently produce about 2.8 TCF a year of gas reserves. We have what we call the gas reserve ratio of about 70 years at current production rates. Now, we can compare an African country, Nigeria, which is the next producer in Africa. Nigeria is the largest producer in Africa, and Nigeria is second. Nigeria produces a lot more gas than we do, whereas it has much lower gas reserves. So in terms of gas production, we are not doing too well. We need to produce a lot more gas for our use and for export. Now, I've also tried to show the breakdown of where this gas production goes. The important thing here is, I think we should focus on the percentages here. About 44% of the gas produced locally is exported, either as LNG or through the West African gas pipeline. 32% of that is used by the industry itself for fuel or for gas lift or for injection. And only 17% is used for domestic market, industries, power, and commercial customers. Only 70% of this gas production is what is in use. Now, the important thing to note here is that whereas we are exporting 44% and we are using only 17%, if you now look at the numbers of this domestic use of it, what goes to the power industry and what goes into the industrial consumer, we'll see that only a small percentage of the needs of both the power and industrial consumers are made available. If you look at what I call energy poverty in Nigeria, you see this illustrates where we are. Globally, we have about 100 million people in Nigeria who are energy poor. Globally, it's estimated to be about 1 billion people who are without electricity. Out of this, about 3 billion people rely on wood and charcoal for cooking. In Nigeria, we think it's roughly about 100 million people. And Nigeria electricity grid can only distribute about 4 gigawatts of power for a population of 200 million. When you compare this to other countries like South Africa, we say that we are really energy poor in Nigeria. Now, what does this mean? What does this mean? If you look at, our energy per capita, we have 29 kilowatts per capita. That's a global average is 3,602 kilowatts hour of energy. When you look at domestic gas supply, we have only about 0.42 TCF that is supplied annually to the market for industries, power and industries. And 1.1 TCF was exported in 2020. Now, 15% of Nigerians use kerosene, charcoal, or firewood. Only 57% of Nigerians have access to grid power. So basically, energy availability for Nigerians is very, very poor. And this, what we refer to as energy poverty, has to be addressed with the abundant resources that we have. Now, let's look at it in a bit more detail. When you look at electricity generation capacity, we see that we have installed capacity of about 12,000 megawatts. That's 12 gigawatts of installed capacity. Out of this, only about 5,000 is available for generation. Out of the 5,000 megawatts that's available to generation, we need about 3,500 million standard cubic feet of gas a day to generate that 5,000 megawatts. But what is really available for power in terms of gas is only about 800 million standard cubic feet per day. So we see the big gap, only about 20%, 20-25% of the gas required for the power industry is available. So what that means is that we have quite a number of what we call stranded power, power generation capacity that cannot be fired because of lack of availability of gas. And I also like to look at the other side of it as well. We said a lot of Nigerians use kerosene firewood for cooking. When we look at LPG supply, which is the alternative for cooking, we've seen a rapid increase in demand in the last 35 years. We see demand increase from about 600 metric tons to about 1 million metric tons in 2020. Now, that increase in demand was supposed to continue over the years, but it has stalled since 2020 at about 1 million metric tons, simply because of the price of LPG. 2019, LPG was around 360 naira per kg. Today, it's roughly about 700 naira per kg. So that has affected the affordability to an average Nigerians. And you see some Nigerians going back to the use of firewood and coal for their cooking needs. That again, it's a key problem because Nigeria imports most of its LPG needs. The chart here tries to show that out of about 600 in 2018, about only 210 metric tons of that were produced locally. The rest was imported. Same picture for 2019. And in 2020, we have 320 locally and about 680 metric tons imported. Now, the low level of production of LPG in the country is due mainly to the lack of activity by the refineries, the foreign refineries that Mahmoud talked about earlier. But also, we also have to look at the fact that NLNG exports a lot of LPG to the international market. Now, governments and LNG have now made an conscious effort to get some of those LPG products to the domestic market, and that's what has helped with the domestic supply of LPG. It's also some companies and some plants are coming up to produce LPG, and we hope that some of these gaps in import will be reduced in subsequent years once those plants are operational. A bit more look at the power generation. We have said that out of the 14,000 megawatts of installed capacity, hydro is roughly about 2,000 megawatts, and thermal is 12,200 megawatts. Thermal is basically generation fired by generators fired by gas. And this shows the importance of availability of gas for power generation in Nigeria. Now, I said before that daily requirement for power generation is about 3,500 million scf per day, out of which only about 600 to 800 million scf are available. Now, what are the challenges there? Now, the challenges with, I will come out to why we have insufficient gas in the system. I will do about that. But let's look at the cost of domestic gas supply and also the cost of electricity supply, the affordability. There is, under the gas master plan, there is a gas pricing mechanism where the industries, the demand sector is classified into 3 different broad categories of industry. There's a gas to power industry, there's gas-based industries. Gas to power are basically grid power plants that supply power to the grid. Gas-based industries are those industries that need gas for either for fertilizer manufacturing or for methanol manufacturing. And then there's the commercial sector. And also under the commercial sector, I would like to separate it into 2 parts. Some commercial enterprises, industries, and so on are connected to gas pipelines, and they receive natural gas. Others are served by virtual pipeline. So they are receiving gas as either as CNG, compressed natural gas, or as LNG, liquefied natural gas. Now, what I'm trying to show you is the pricing for these various categories. Under the strategic industry, which is gas to power part, the gas is priced at roughly about $3 per 1,000 scf per day. The gas-based industries receive gas at a price of about $4 per scf, whereas for those who are classified as commercial, who are connected to pipelines, they are getting gas at roughly double of that, about $8 plus. That's what the industries get their gas from at pipe gas. For those who are not lucky enough to be near any pipeline, are not connected to any pipeline, they receive their gas as virtual pipeline at roughly about $12 per 1,000 scf. So we see the range for power generation on grid at about $3 to those industries and manufacturers that are generating their own power. They're receiving gas at about $12. That's about 4 times. Now, this is a challenge, and that's all this cost gets passed back to the end user of the products. So the difference between what the producer, that's upstream producer of gas, who probably is happy with $2.50, $3 price for the upstream gas. And the $12 that the end consumer use is what I call the affordability gap, which needs to be addressed by market-driven pricing regime that is competitive and that will drive sustainable generation, production, transmission, and the end use of gas products. Let's also look at electricity generation costs in country. I've tried to explain what the different costs of generating electricity is depending on the source of fuel you use, because fuel is the major cost of electricity production. If you are connected to a pipe gas system and you are getting your gas at roughly $8 per 1,000 scum, your cost of fuel for generation electricity is roughly about 35 naira per kilowatt hour. But for those who have to rely on virtual pipeline, CNG, LNG, the cost of fuel is minimum of 51 naira per kilowatt hour. For small estates, households, and so on that have to rely on diesel generators, your cost of fuel is anywhere from 205 naira per kilowatt hour to 220 naira per kilowatt hour, the base depending on the cost of diesel. So we see that huge gap between getting electricity from the grid or getting electricity generated by the use of gas or using diesel. And that is also, as I say, is a challenge that those who have to rely on diesel for power generation, the opportunity that is there, that when you replace liquid products with gas, you can be sure of substantial cost savings in that. Now, that's the challenge. Now, the question is affordable and reliable energy access, is it possible in Nigeria? And if it's possible, what do we need to do to make that possible? Now, let me give us an overview of the infrastructure that we have for gas distribution, because the challenge for us is that the infrastructure is not only unevenly distributed, it is also limited and it is inadequate. In the insights on the right-hand side, top right-hand side of the screen is a map of Nigeria showing the major industrial clusters. Kano, Kaduna Industrial Cluster, Lagos, Ottawa Industrial Cluster in the southwest, and Port Harcourt Aba Industrial Cluster. And then in red is the existing pipeline infrastructure, the backbone pipeline transmission system. On the left-hand side is a blow-up of that picture. You can see the pipeline, the various pipeline systems there. The major pipeline system is the one that Niger Delta, where the oil is produced, to the west, to Lagos area, which is called the Escavos Lagos Pipeline System. And that feeds into the industries in the Ota, Agbara, and so on. That system, that the last mile distribution network in the Lagos area, is what is referred to as the Western Network. When you go to the east, around Aba, Port Harcourt area, where you have another industrial cluster, you also have the Eastern Network for pipeline distribution there. And in the north, you have the pipeline that goes from Oben up to Ajakuta and also Obajana. So that pipeline supplies Ajakuta, some industries around the Ajakuta area, supplies the Dirigu power plants in that Ajakuta area, and the Obajana cement plant as well. That's the extent of the pipeline infrastructure, and it's obvious that this is concentrated only in the southern part of the country. From the Ajakuta node is the APK pipeline that is currently under construction. That is supposed to take gas from Ajakuta up to Kaduna and up to Kano. Work is going on actively on that pipeline. It was initially planned to be completed sometime in 2023. We're not sure whether that will be the case or not. There may be some delays, but that will be the only access. That will be the only one providing access to the Kano Kaduna industrial cluster, which are currently starved of gas. Now, why is this important? why this is important is that, as we've seen, there's substantial savings by industries adopting the use of gas instead of liquid products, diesel, PMS, and so on. So it's important that the pipeline infrastructure is beefed up. Now, what I've sketched here is just a brief picture of pipeline availability, where they are, where they reach. But beyond that is also the capacity of those pipelines, what volume they can carry, and the capacity to supply the required gas volume into the pipeline. Let's look a bit further into. I've mentioned there the word virtual pipeline. Now, it's where the pipe gas is not available. It's always possible to extend the reach of gas to other industries that may be stranded by the use of virtual pipeline. This involves basically using compressed natural gas to take gas to those parts, LNG to take gas to those parts. The whole purpose here is to compress gas as much as possible to increase the energy density of the gas. By using compressed natural gas, we're able to reduce the volume by 100 times. And that aids in the transportation of gas to the various end users. In the case of LNG, by cooling it sufficiently, you're also able to reduce volume to by about 600 times, also making it logistically feasible for transporting to the local industries. In Nigeria, we have only one local LNG company at present, as the Greenville LNG, that is located in Port Harcourt. And because of the nature of LNG, is able to reach most parts of the country through its virtual pipeline of trucks. For CNG, because it's less dense compared to LNG, we only limited to typically a range of 200 kilometers at the most for distribution of gas. And what I've shown here is the circle of virtual pipeline, where virtual pipeline can go to, so that industries that are located outside the reach of those pipeline infrastructure can have access to gas by using LNG. Now, I've mentioned about the importance of gas as a replacement tool. There are two major reasons for the use of gas instead of gas. One, it's very cost effective, it's cheaper. Two, it's environmentally friendly. It's about 45% less greenhouse gas emissions. It's about 90% less particulate matters in the combustion of gas. So gas is, for that reason, gas is treated as a transition fuel for the future. And to that extent, it's important that we also promote the use of gas in the industries and for companies. One other area that gas is becoming very powerful nowadays is in the area of NGVs, natural gas vehicles. Because with the diesel price going from about 200 to 600 to 800 naira, it becomes very, very expensive for haulage farms to operate. So we've seen that a lot of haulage farms have now adopted the use of CNG power trucks. And each of some of those haulage farms that have adopted CNG trucks being filled with gas. And it's substantial cost savings. By today's figures, you can have about 70% savings on fuel costs by adopting natural gas vehicles. We expect that when this deregulation of the PMS market happens, we also see similar trend for smaller vehicles that use PMS in trying to convert to the use of CNG for haulage and for transportation as well. Just a little bit about CNG transportations and the business model, how it works. Just a quick one. Basically, we'll start with feedstock pipe gas. Let me emphasize that CNG does not provide additional gas into the system. CNG takes from the pipe what's already in the pipeline, compresses it, and delivers to end users. So we are not increasing the amount of volume of gas available for local use. The only thing is that we make it accessible to stranded industries and so on. So basically what we do is to compress CNG into the tip cascades and then transport it to our customer base wherever they are. The customer base, that gas is decanted, used for energy generation, and then the tip cascade returns to base. It gets refilled and it goes back to the customer base again. We have in the past serviced many industries in the fast consumer goods industries and also power plants as well. And we have provided compressed natural gas for those people. And I think we have seen that a lot of companies are switching their boilers with the use of CNG. We have seen companies also using CNG for their power generations, and we are actively supporting those companies. As I said earlier, typically CNG's range is about 200 to 300 kilometers max, but with innovations, with new technology, we can extend that range to up to 600 kilometers. And I can say that as we speak today, we are supplying some industries in Kano with CNG, all the way from Kogi State, from Ajaokuta area. We take CNG up all the way to Kano, is helping with reducing costs for those manufacturing industries. Now, what are the challenges? The key challenges for energy availability in industries is that the demand for gas has outstripped the supply of gas in the last few years. Currently, the power industry is underserved by a supply of gas. Industrial commercial demand is growing. The Dangote fertilizer plant in Lekki will get into full production anytime soon. There will be huge demand for gas from there. In order to meet this increasing demand, we see that in the recent years, availability of pipe gas has become not as assured, but our axis are suffering from pipe gas disruptions. We have seen that availability has reduced from about 90% to sometimes as low as 80% in some cases. So we need alternative additional injection of gas into the system. And thank God that NLNG is making plans to start injecting some of those LNG that is exported into the local market. A number of planning to set up receiving facilities in the Lagos area to be able to provide LNG into the market. We also know that we really need a lot of investment in the upstream side to be able to produce, develop, and produce more gas that can be put into the pipeline system. So importantly, we know that there are 7 major projects that NMPCL has identified as 7 critical gas development projects. These projects, if executed as planned, and when completed, is planned to develop up to 41 TCF of gas, and with the capacity to supply 3.4 billion cubic feet of gas daily. So it's important that those projects are given the right attention and the right funding to be sure that the gas that is required to power the local industry is available. There are also other development activities that are going on. There's an LPG plant in Delta State that is been built, is yet to start production. We hope that when that starts, that will also bridge the supply of LPG into the market. Separate development in Imo State, it's going to be a big development that can supply a lot of gas into the pipeline systems. One challenge that I'd like to mention is that the transmission systems have shown, the gas pipeline systems, they are basically two different systems. There's a system in the west and a system in the east, and the two systems are not connected. So there are a lot more gas available in the east than in the west. So you need to be able to bridge that link to make gas available in the west and also by extension to Ajakuta and to the north. And the OB3 pipeline project is one key project that will do that. It's I'm sure it's nearing completion. Completion of that project will help to really put more gas into the system and reduce the current scarcity of gas. The AKK pipeline, I cannot overemphasize the importance of that pipeline structure. As I said, a major hub, industrial hub is Kano, Kaduna, and the entire north currently it's basically stuff of gas. So it's important that that pipeline system is completed and is able to feed the local industry. Now, the other challenge, the other issue is pipeline. We've seen in the last couple of months that Nigeria's oil production dropped from roughly 2 million barrels per day to about 1 million barrels per day because of pipeline vandalization. When this happens, that also has impact. Although the vandalization is all pipeline, but it has major impact on gas supplies because about half of the gas reserves we have in this country is made up of associated gas. That's gas that is produced along with oil. So once the oil flow stations are not working, then it also means that that gas that's associated with the oil is also not available for the system. So it's important that the regulators start thinking of what we call a swing producer system, which is applied globally. Swing producer in the sense that you have dedicated gas facilities and fields that will fill the void whenever there's a vandalization of the pipeline and your associated gas is not available. So this will be non-associated gas fields that is dedicated to be a swing producer to fill the gap whenever there's a drop in oil production. It is very important for stability in the gas supply system. Now, just to round up with the challenges and so on, it's important to note what are the benefits of a transition to gas. I've mentioned the resources available, the need to develop them, and the need to make sure that those resources are available locally for industries and for power generation. If we do all of this, there are some key impacts on the economy in the sense that we are going to have savings of forex from diesel and PMS substitution, because if a lot of our vehicles are running on CNG, if our industries are, most of our homes are powered by gas-fired electricity, then we are going to rely less on liquid products and we'll save the money that's used today on importation of those products. Manufacturers will benefit a lot from this because manufacturers will see significant reduction in energy costs by switching to gas. And that will improve their competitiveness. It will reduce the final cost of their product, it will increase demand. It will also reduce employment because the manufacturing industries plants will remain and would. And we also, by switching to gas, we also have significant reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. So these are the major gains from switching to gas. I think I would leave the rest for the question and answer sessions. And thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you very much, Segun Ogunwumi. Thank you for all the statistics shared and all the information you have brought to the table. Looking at the percentage of gas that we use domestically, being 17%, you know, I believe that really creates an opportunity for growth. So there is a whole lot more that we can do within the gas space to enhance the use and uptake of gas as a fuel. And you know, there is no limit really to how much of it we can begin to use. I think at this point, let me just inform the audience. I see 4 questions, 2 of which are inquiries in the please put in your questions in the Q&A segment. For those who have asked whether the slides will be shared, they will be shared. They will be shared after you do the feedback, you fill the feedback form. And then the recording of this, this session will be on the website of the Nbcc. So you will be able to access the actual recording. All right, so thank you, Shego, and thank you, Mahmoud. There are quite a number of questions that have come up. But what I'll do is I'll go first online and take the questions that are already in the box. And then I have a few of my own as well. So we will look to being able to bring this to the terms that really relate to us directly. Okay, so here's the first question. How should the government go about removing subsidy, especially because of the apprehension by the general public to palliatives and measures put in place to cushion the effect? So I believe the first place will be for you, Mahmoud, but I'm also going to ask you, Shegu, to take a stab at it. So Mahmoud, how should the government go about removing subsidies?
Thank you. My opinion, I think the first thing the government should do is own up and say that it's not working. I think the communication needs to be improved. We need to show people the facts. We're spending so much money. If 6 trillion naira is our budget deficit and we're spending that on subsidy, then clearly everybody will understand that. So are we communicating effectively the pain? Are we communicating the reasons why it's difficult to have the dollars? It's a very opaque structure today. We are producing crude oil. Instead of selling that oil and putting the proceeds into the Federation account, effectively we're swapping that crude oil for refined products. There's value loss on both sides. Then we're now, again, subsidizing the exchange rate. We are subsidizing volume. We're subsidizing price, and we're killing our long-term economy. So I think it's for us to show Nigeria, so government to engage the population and say, this is the challenge. The country is broke. These are the reasons. And this is why we need to remove subsidy and why in the long term, subsidy benefits. We've done the same thing. We haven't achieved the result. So we need to try something different. So I think communication is very key in how, because people talk about lack of transparency. They talk about how opaque the structure is. They talk about, oh, marketers are benefiting. Well, marketers are not importing the petroleum product. So is government benefiting it? So there's a lot of misinformation in there. So I think that we need to just tackle, take the bull by the horns and actually say, this is the problem and admit it. Because right now, what we keep doing is kicking it down the road. We kick the can down the road and ignore the problem and think that one day somebody is going to solve it. As I said, in May 20, if President Buhari had deregulated the market, 29th of May 2015, he had that opportunity. The landed cost of product was lower. He missed that window. We've had at least 3 successive cycles where crude oil prices have crashed around COVID, and I think 2018, etc., 2020. So we've had those periods where instead of then liberating the market, what did we do? Or we reduced prices. We effectively deceived Nigerians. So for me, it's about effective communication.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. You shared statistics of an increase between last quarter of 2022 and the first quarter of 2020, and it was astounding. I was wondering, wow, how did that happen? So indeed, transparency, communication will be very useful in working this. Shegun, would you like to chip in?
Yes, thank you, Funcho. I think Mahmoud has hit the nail on the head. Education is key. We need to educate our people on the need for the removal. We need to educate our people on the advantages of removing it, because if the economy is struggling, we all struggle along with the economy. But more importantly, the government has to get its acts together in terms of the palliatives. Now, I said, it's not just because I'm in the gas space. Today, if your vehicle is powered by gas, the cost to you is roughly in the range of 100 naira or lower. Compared to diesel that is 700 naira, compared to MS when it's subsidized, when it's deregulated, that may be 300, 380, depending on which country model you use. So a cheaper alternative is there. So the government focus on addressing the challenges with public transportation by bringing vehicles that are using alternative sources of fuel. Lagos recently brought in electric vehicles. Gas buses can be brought in. That reduces cost of public transportation for the public and mitigate the impact of subsidy removal. So I think the government has to get its acts together, encourage the use of alternative fuel that will be cheaper and also cleaner for the economy. So that would be my take. The challenge for that, for small vehicle owners, is the cost of conversion to using gas. But that is part of the areas where government palliative should be addressed to, so that you can help poor people migrate their vehicles to use gas, and then they can start relying on the gas infrastructure that is available. And then you then also need to support the industry to build the infrastructure needed to make that gas available. That would be my contribution.
All right, thanks, Shegun. You make a very good point about the conversion of, the fuel that is used to either for transport or for other sources. But I want to drill a little bit further into that, because we keep saying government should, about conversion. I also see this as a business opportunity. For some, mechanism where you can convert. If I wanted to convert my car to gas, for example, are those industries available? Are those opportunities there for people to invest in such, areas that would, enhance the uptake of the use of gas, especially for transport in this case?
Yes, thank you. The facilities are there. The industries are there. Conversion is available for those who want to convert. It's almost like a chicken and egg situation. Will investors invest when you are not sure whether the deregulation will happen or not? Or will they wait until you have deregulated before they invest? But already the infrastructure for autofilling is there. And I must say that NIPCO has done wonderful work by setting up infrastructure in key places where you can fill up for gas. And many other people are following in that step. Once there's some certainty about the regulation happening, you see that a lot of people will take on that opportunity to provide conversion facilities, to provide auto CNG filling stations, and so on. But that is already happening. It will only accelerate more with deregulation.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that clarity. Okay, so the next, I think I will weave in my own question into this. This is a question from Paul, Ebitimi. So you also, Shegun, you gave us statistics around the gas, or the fuel, cost of fuel. And we find that gas, either CNG or direct gas, it's quite significantly lower than the use of diesel. So over the years, we have powered estates, communities, with diesel. But I'm not seeing as much of an uptake of gas. Those systems are not being converted to gas. The other day, my husband and I were having that chat. Why is it that, the gas is not being taken up? So the question from Ebitimi is, what is the bottleneck to increasing the accessibility of CNG or, gas to power using virtual pipelines?
Yeah, thank you, Funto. Two areas I will look at. For our CNG, it's you need to be a medium scale off-taker of that gas to make sense for it. So if I a single household unit, it does not make sense to have a gas generator. It does not make sense to have the receiving facilities for gas and so on. So that's one challenge. So you have large estates who are doing that presently, and you also have industries and commercial enterprises that are doing that. Now, we have a sister company that generates power and provides power to governments, state governments in Lagos, Ogun, and also to neighborhoods in Lekki, Ikoyi, and so on. Now, the challenge before is the regulation of the electricity industry, because the most effective way to do it is to have, you don't all have to be on grid power generation. You can have small scale power generations in neighborhoods, in localities. Then those ones can take the gas, convert to electricity, supply to neighborhoods. But the electric regulatory system, as we have today, did not allow that. Now, there's the recent changes in the regulation, which will change things. And I will hope that if state governments take effective advantage of that regulations, it will become easier to have small off-grid generation using gas that will then afford the people cheaper source of electricity.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Mahmoud, do you have a view on that you'd like to share, especially from the diesel versus gas question? It's one man's meat.
Hopefully this one is a cleaner poison in LPG. I think I'll take it holistically to say that part of our problem is that we don't have a coordinated policy. So the Ministry of Power is doing something, the Ministry of Petroleum is doing something. We don't have a national energy framework, master plan that puts all the stakeholders together. What is upstream doing? We've looked at upstream, the cost of development, the transfer pricing of gas. Upstream operators would rather feed that into LNG and export. We're a gas nation, we don't have enough power. We're an oil producing nation, we don't refine. So I think there's a lack of a coordinated master plan. We need to get back to the drawing board, and that's what's going to help us. Everything we're talking about, transition fuel, LPG, LNG, everything's available in Nigeria, but we're not coordinated. So different policy makers are doing different things. So I'm hoping the next administration will actually say enough is enough. What are all these 10 different parallel plans that are all not working in sync? Let's bring everybody to one table and reorganize our plans for the next 5 years. Because if they say if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And that's where we are. So we're importing diesel at 800 naira because that's what we can buy. We can get FX or whatever price it is. Diesel ought to be cheaper than petrol. So people get scared. If diesel is 800 naira per liter, or what price is petrol going to be sold at? Then again, the energy mix, we don't like, we complain there's no power, yet we run our generators. Yet we want to run our generators because we have subsidized fuel, or we run diesel generators. Are we looking at our unit technical cost of power average? Instead of saying subsidize the electricity sector, pay a little bit more for it, a more decent price, and it will be available than actually consuming or running alternative sources that are actually eventually increasing our costs. So we're not doing enough energy economics review, and when our policies are not coordinated at the national level.
Great. Thanks for bringing that up. Because indeed, when we talk about the gas, there is a decade of gas which was declared in 2001 up till 2030. When we talk about decade of gas and when we begin to talk about energy, I believe the key, the ultimate goal of energy is to power progress, to power. And so if it's not end to end, then we've missed something there. So it really is important to coordinate and make sure we have all the policies together with one end in sight, to provide energy across the nation and make availability and affordability in particular in a nation like ours. It's important for it to be affordable. So thank you for that, bringing into the policy zone the need for our policies to be more coherent. All right, so I will move now to the next question. This is a question from Khalid Oluyadi. And he says, beyond continuing subsidy in Nigeria, what other areas should the government focus on to quickly address existing markets in, oh my goodness, that is the Lagbaja, that was mentioned in my, okay, he's gone, sorry. So it says, what else, what are other quick fixes for the existing market inefficiencies? And how are we communicating these to the government? I'll take it again. It says, beyond discontinuing the subsidy, right? What are the other areas that we should draw the government's attention to with regard to the existing market inefficiencies? And how are we communicating this to government?
So it's an interesting question, but I think in our discussion we've answered it. Because if you look at the value chain, so we're talking about the inefficiency, say, of the supply of petroleum products. Well, there's no refinery working, so we have to import. If it's been imported, you have to pay for it. So if it's either if it's at the regulated price, then only government can do it, because they are fixing the exchange rate and they're fixing the conditions of supply and the transfer price. If it's a deregulated market, then of course and they give you access to the FX, you will buy the FX and supply. Because part of the problem today is the fact that we don't know how much we're consuming. So the market is actually oversupplied. So that inefficiency itself, there's a volume inefficiency, there's a price inefficiency, there's an exchange rate inefficiency. So everything revolves still around, if you deregulate the market and take out the subsidy, you will take out that inefficiency. The questions will answer themselves, because then who's going to import? So you're not going to keep 30-day strategic stock offshore. You're not, think about it, is AGO not available? You don't hear of shortage of AGO, because the market, people import what the market requires. But today, do you realize that Nbcc keeps 30-day strategic stock offshore? That's 2.1 billion liters of fuel sitting offshore every day, so that we don't have a panic. You know the PMS can cause a riot in this country. All it takes is 2 days, people don't load, there's a public holiday, you see shortages, because we have to bridge across. So roads have been concessioned, yes, tax breaks have been given to major industries, so they're going to get better roads and tankers can move faster. But if you don't concession the terminals, you don't concession the pipeline network, you don't deregulate the market, you will constantly have that inefficiency, because the market should dictate the volume and the price, and consumption will dictate that. We will all be shocked that consumption will drop to 40 million liters a day. I used to tell the joke about where I lived in a block of flats. 4 families, 4 kids going to the same school every day. What happens? Every morning, 4 sets of cars go to the. Until one day I said to the mothers, I'm volunteering my driver to take your kids to school and bring them back, if that will just save petrol, because we're spoiled. So we're not paying for it, so therefore it goes. I pass my neighbor generator, it's fuel, it's subsidized, there's no power, put it on. So these are all the inefficiencies. So we talk about deregulation and removing subsidy. Subsidy has become a political issue today. The nation is very tense. Election results are over. Incoming government doesn't want any issues. But we can't keep kicking this proverbial can down the road. We've seen the cost, 6 trillion naira this year. What is it going to be next year? 10 trillion naira? At what point are we going to wake up and say enough is enough?
Great. That's really hits the nail. I must confess here that I have a couple of colleagues down my close, and we all get into our cars and drive to the same office. So yes, it happens. But I'm sure by the time the subsidy is removed, we will think twice about carpooling. So thank you for that. I'd also like to ask Taj to take a shot at this. Taj Shobayo.
Yes, Madam Funto.
Yes, sir. So you wanted to address the same question?
No, I think the answer is comprehensive. We can move on to the
Okay.
next question.
All right, thank you. Next question is from Chigo. And he says, if the end user is to change infrastructure, equipment, let me read it before I say it. Okay, yeah. So essentially he's asking if an end user wants to convert, right, to piped CNG or LNG option. Is this not a major challenge? Is there any study in place to prevent this? Is there any study in place to prevent this repeated capital expenditure, okay, for the end user with respect to the type of supply available at a given point in time? So Segun, I believe this is for you. It's about, the cost of converting, I believe. So you want to switch to piped gas, CNG or LNG. It's always a major challenge and there's a lot of capital outlay. So is there any, could you comment on this and prefer any solutions if there's any insight? You are on mute. You are muted, Segun.
Yeah, thank you. There are a lot of systems in place to protect the end user. First of all, there's a regulator in place which regulates the standard, the quality of the materials that is used. First of all, to ensure that the safety is paramount, that the safety of the end user is guaranteed. Two, in terms of cost, as I said, the key thing is market forces. Once there's competition, the market forces will determine the final cost for conversion or for the infrastructure that is needed to get to use the gas and so on. Duplication of costs, I do not see that happening in terms of conversion and changing to gas, because if you are not connected to pipe gas and you have to start with CNG virtual pipeline, you need some minimal infrastructure in place to receive the CNG. But those infrastructures can be relocated whenever pipe gas gets close to you. So you simply connect your pipe gas and then the infrastructure can be located and be used by somebody else who needs it somewhere else. So in terms of costs, duplication of costs, the risk is minimal and there are mitigating factors that can be put in place. So I think people should be confident that the regulatory agencies are there to provide safety for conversion, and also hopefully with the market forces, the cost will be affordable and reasonable.
Okay, right, thank you. We'll take the next question. That's for you, Mahmoud. It says, you speak of arbitrage opportunities in the oil sector, yet you only propose partial removal of subsidy. Is that not a suboptimal solution? All right, I will let you answer that, but I'm not sure I heard partial removal, but go ahead, please.
So actually, first of all, I think what I mentioned was to show that because there's arbitrage between the selling price of products in Nigeria and the selling price of products across the region, that delta is an incentive for smuggling. So if I can buy products at whatever it is in Nigeria, there's enough margin in there for me to pay my way through and sell it across the border and still make more money. Hence, the volume of consumption increases. What I said was, because of the fact that we have failed to take advantage of deregulating the market when we had the opportunity, we're now faced with the problem of, if we say full deregulation today on a given date, it's going to cause turmoil. So therefore, let's start a phased deregulation. After all, the question is this: selling price of fuel is 185 naira per liter. How often are we buying fuel at 185 naira per liter? How often are we buying fuel at 200 and something naira per liter ex-depot? Why is that? Because the landed cost of product is too high. Freight rate has gone up. MPA costs, all of these costs are denominated in dollars. and the government does not make available any dollars at the official exchange rate for such services. These are invisible. So if you bring in a vessel, you charter, you pay freight rates in dollars, you pay MP in dollars, Nimasa in dollars, you pay stevedoring charges. So what do? You now go and buy dollars in a parallel market and remit. So that's an additional demand chasing dollars. That is also then fueling the exchange rate. Why is MPF? We can say, okay, all petroleum products, and there's actually a directive in this regard. It just hasn't been implemented, that petroleum products should be charged in Naira. If you take that demand out of the system, that should cool a little bit the price of dollars. But going back to my point, what I'm saying is that, look, we missed it. So therefore, an immediate and total deregulation may be problematic, but a phased deregulation in the next 6 months. So every month, we gradually increase the price. We communicate to the public, this is the challenge. Governor Baseki was on 2 days ago, I think. What was he saying? I'm not sure we can pay salaries after June because of subsidy. This is a governor talking because he's seeing what's happening at FAC. So we need to educate Nigerians, communicate to Nigerians, and start the process of increasing the cost of PMS month on month, and therefore reducing the subsidy with an end goal of completely exiting. Whilst we talk about the palliatives, while we talk about producing, alternative sources, whether it is electrical vehicles in Lagos, mass transit buses, all of these things that will eventually replace the volume of PMS consumption that is being subsidized, but not to do it.
So that's clear. But then that also brings to question our ability to follow through on actions. You don't want a situation where they start and then, with some whipping and wailing, we decide, okay, we'll stop it for now until further. That would further bury us, into the situation that we are in now. Thank you for that. Yeah, you wanted to say something?
If I may add, we've done a very hard part of it. We have passed a law that says there's deregulation, the PIA. Passing the PIA itself as an albatross, that has been done. And kudos to His Excellency, the former Minister Timi Presilva, and all his team, the GMD, the National Assembly, fantastic. They finally passed this very important law. It's just to implement it.
Indeed.
So we're halfway there. The law is there. So there's legal backing for what the government needs to do.
Indeed, good points there. And also to make sure the regulations don't erode, what the law intends to do. Right. I am going to come to you now, Segun, and that will be with the question from Charles Ekanem. Charles' question before I go up to another oil-related question. So Charles is asking, what is the government doing to put adequate gas infrastructure in place? We can see how boreholes are drilled rampantly due to lack of water pipe distribution network. Indeed. So we have gas, we need infrastructure to take the gas across. Are we going to end up in a situation where we'll all be drilling our gas wells? So Segun, that's a question for you. What's government doing about infrastructure?
Thanks, Punto. I think you already hinted at that. You said that in 2021 or thereabouts, the government declared a decade of gas. And that decade of gas was to focus on what are the needs to make Nigeria a gas consuming nation. Now, in terms of infrastructure, a lot of government is doing a lot, I must say that. The challenge we have, I've mentioned the AKK pipeline, as gas to Kano. We have mentioned the OB3 pipeline that's going to take gas from the east to the west. I've mentioned semi-critical gas development projects that Nbcc is facing. But I think the challenge we have in this country is that we have a tendency to fight more than we can. There's a lot of things. Let's not forget that even with the PIA, NNPC is a 55% to 60% shareholder in all the oil companies, most of them onshore at least. And they have to pay for 55 to 60% of the cost of all these development activities. Where are they going to find money to fund all these projects? That is the critical question. The PIA implementation has to go on, but I think it's the oil industry is sick. I hope the PIA will be the silver bullet that will cure it. So I'm not 100% sure of that. We need to look at the ways and means of funding all these projects that needs to be done to provide the infrastructure. I don't think Nbcc alone can fund it. So the government has to learn how to be creative. Nbcc itself has to learn how to be creative. We've seen that Saudi Aramco is divesting some of its shares. I don't see why NBCC must hold 55% to 60% in all the major oil blocks in this country. Perhaps divestment should be on the cards to raise the funds to provide this basic infrastructure. My greatest fear is that we said gas is a transition fuel. With 20, 30 years, I'm wondering what will happen in 30, 40 years. Will the world need gas? Will gas become the coal of the 50s and the 40s? So if you don't do what we need to do now and put gas to develop our economy, we may have a resource that is wasting away in the ground if we don't act fast.
All right. Yeah, thanks for that, Segun. And also to add, the PIA actually provides for a gas infrastructure fund, and that's a percentage, 0.5%, I think, of the gas wholesale customers are meant to contribute to that. However, it is how we handle that fund, right? And then there are several other charges and fees coming in via the PIA regulations that are meant to be targeted towards provision of infrastructure as well. But really, it's the management of it that will eventually tell whether we get the benefits expected. Thank you for that, Segun. Okay, so now we go on to, this is an anonymous attendee. He asked, please elaborate more on the role of technology in monitoring and evaluation of the pipe. Okay, so the question is about, what's the technology that can be used? Is there available technology to monitor and evaluate pipeline security, and then connect this with the need to develop the northern economy as well? So how are we handling security? And this goes to both of you. How are we, what technology is available to monitor our pipeline security? As we have said, it affects both the supply of crude oil and of the associated gas, which is a critical transition fuel for us. So let's go to Mahmoud first, and then Segun will chip in as well.
Can I ask Segun take it first? I need to be excused for a minute. Sorry.
All right. Okay, Segun.
All right, yeah.
Let's go for it.
Well, there are a couple of technologies that can be used, and I will try and enumerate a few of them. But the key thing is the willpower to do something. Technology will alert you, will tell you what is happening, and you respond in time to prevent it from happening. That is the key question there. Now, there are technologies that allow you, once there's a breach on the pipeline, you'll get a telemetry message that tells you there's a breach on the pipeline. This is where it is happening. Quickly send your response team to that area. That is available in place. Nowadays, there's drone technology, and you can do your pipeline surveillance using drones. And that's alerts you on time. That is about, above all of that, you need a rapid response force that has the will and the skill and the equipment to respond and prevent these things from happening. Now, there's another technology, and the company has actually done it. Nation laid a pipeline from its feet to Escavos. That pipeline is buried from 6 to 10 meters deep. That makes it difficult to access and furtherlize. So that's another, so deep boring technology is also there for laying of pipelines. So those are the various technologies that can be used. But as I said, it goes beyond technology. It's about your security infrastructure, your governance system. It's a whole lot of things. We are not the first country to have pipeline systems in the world. But why is it that our pipeline system for products for this are vandalized? So I think it's a much more encompassing problem than just simply the adoption of technology.
All right, thank you, Shegun. Mahmoud?
I think Shegun has covered the technology aspects very well. I will only add that beyond on the pipeline, in terms of technology for monitoring sales of products, that exists. So there are companies in Nigeria today that are offering technology that help downstream operators monitor the sale of products on a daily basis in their stations. The next level is to take that tech and aggregate it from a regulatory perspective and actually look at how much has been consumed on a daily basis. So let's answer this question. What is our daily consumption? I think through a bit of regulatory oversight, that question can be answered.
All right, thank you. Yeah, indeed, the security question is a very huge one, right from the pipelines, even from the wellheads, right, all the way to the pipelines, and then distribution networks as well. It's also important to note that there are also social, or how do you put it, socio-economic arrangements that are also made to help secure facilities, like engaging the communities to be the ones who kind of safeguard the facilities. But nonetheless, bottom line, and I think we all need to realize this, is that the security of pipelines, of all infrastructure relating to the energy industry really lies with the government. As a company or as an individual entrepreneur, you can't go there to defend your property. These are still done through the government security agencies. So ultimately, it's in the hands of those joint task force. Even when your drone picks it up, someone needs to go there and stop it, and that's where sometimes it's the efficiencies are lost in the process. Okay. Yeah, so that was the last question. If there's anyone who is looking to, oh, wow, no, we have actually done well with time. We have exactly 5 minutes to go, so we won't take any further questions at this time. Thank you. I have to say a big thank you to both Shegun and Mahmoud. Thank you very much for your presentations. Very, very elaborate, very detailed, and gives a very structured insight to what we're dealing with respect to the topic, which is the dealing with energy availability and affordability. We thank you for your time, and all participants that have joined this session as well. I trust that you have found it useful. Thanks for your very good questions. And like I said earlier, they will be available, and the recording will be available after you have filled the feedback form, and the pack as well will be sent to you on receipt of your feedback form. I will very quickly now hand it over to the Vice President of the Nbcc, Mr. Aki Oshuntoki, to give the vote of thanks and some announcements.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. It is my pleasure to say the vote of thanks and make a few announcements. On behalf of the Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to say a big thank you to our speakers. Mr. Mahmoud Chuka, Mr. Olusegun Ogunwumi, and the moderator, Mrs. Olufunto Anam. I'll also say a big thank you to our council member, Dr. Seinde Oladapo, for his goodwill message and also for sponsoring this event. Let me also thank our patrons and council members, our sponsors, GMT Energy Resources, ladies and gentlemen, the Energy Group, members of the Energy Group, and the Nbcc headquarters for the great job they have done with this event. Permit me to update you with a few of the upcoming events, the details of the upcoming events. We have the Nbcc Agric and Export Trade Group event. This is scheduled for May 4, 2023. Please, you are all invited to participate. Exhibition slots are available at 50,000 naira per booth. Also, the Nbcc Expert in Residence program is scheduled for May 16, 2023 on the Zoom platform at 10 a.m. and participation is free. The Nbcc breakfast meeting will come up on Thursday, May 18th, 2023. We are all invited. The 2023 trade mission to the United Kingdom, City of London and the City of Birmingham will come up from May 22nd all through to May 27th, 2023. Interested individuals and corporates are invited to participate. It promises to be a good opportunity to end your frontiers. The plaza, our plaza, the headquarters, is open with state-of-the-art facilities for you to host your corporate events, your training programs, seminars, and meetings at affordable rates. Please reach out to the headquarters to make inquiries and reservations. We would also like to have your feedback from time to time. Please scan the barcode on the screen. Scan the barcode on the screen. Please, you can also join us on the social media. The details are on our screen. The details are on our screen. Please, if you are interested in becoming a member of our chamber, kindly contact the email addresses on the screen. The email addresses on the screen. Once again, it's been a great, great pleasure being on this call, and we want to thank everyone for. Again, we expect that you join us at our future programs. Once again, I thank all the speakers, the moderator, and indeed everyone who has made this a great success. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.